Sorry. Okay. Are you looking at the camera? You don't look at the camera.
I'm not looking at the camera. Hello.
Okay, I guess we can start. Well, we don't have to do like name or whatever. I guess we could do name because I don't know. I don't think I'm going to show this to them. I think I'm just doing this for my own notes. But just in case, I guess.
My name is Elena.
Hi, Elena.
Hi, class.
Welcome to the Adam Gadomski show.
That would be an interesting show.
Yeah. Okay. So you went to Africa.
Kenya.
To Kenya.
To Kenya.
Okay. And when was this?
August 26th.
August 26th.
Through November 26th.
Alright.
2013.
Alright, so just recently.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose for this?
It was a missions trip. There were a lot of different ministry outlets. The primary one was to work in the hospital. Just do medical work.
Work in a hospital. Now, do you know under what umbrella of what organization this was?
It was with AIM, Adventures in Missions. They're non-denominational.
Adventures in Missions, non-denominational, which means Baptist with a cool website. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will never go with them again.
Why?
So many theological.
Oh, so many theological issues.
Yeah.
So they're a bunch of semi-Pelagians. Okay, I'll put that there.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you think that I'm them. I'm not them. I'm Arminians. If you're an actual... Sorry, people. Okay.
Don't show this video. You're like, what?
Okay, I need to buy you a book.
Okay.
It's called James Arminius, Theologian of Grace, and it actually shows what his beliefs were. I could 99% be positive that you'd be like, oh, that's what I believe. Literally.
But maybe.
Okay.
You're underestimating me.
I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm talking about
But I know. But
I want John Piper to read this book.
Oh. Okay, John Piper's not super Calvinist.
Oh well, no, he's not super Calvinist, but I very much dislike him.
Whoa.
No. Okay, this is what happened.
Oh no, this is gonna destroy everything.
I seriously went to a seminar or whatever of his for free in Nashville, and I'm thinking, oh great, I'm going to be able to see him, preach, and I'm told, about how great he is as a preacher and stuff like that. Maybe it'll make me think better of him, because I really don't want to dislike him, because I've heard sermons from him online that I really disliked, things I was just no, nothing to do with Calvinism, just no, that's bad. And what I saw there, he gave about 3 hours worth of preaching in various segments. Mm-hmm. The one in the middle was about salvation. All right, if you could turn to 1 Corinthians 15. Okay. Do you know the passage?
Gosh.
Do you know the chapter? 1 Corinthians 15.
I know maybe it's 2 Corinthians 14. Tell me about it.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 15 is Paul's most important chapter on the resurrection. The most important chapter on the resurrection, explaining the resurrection.
Okay.
That is the one where Paul says, if Jesus did not rise from the dead, then you are still in your sins, and we are above all most to be pitied. Okay? And he starts it off by explaining the gospel. John Piper gave 6 essentials to the gospel. He read the first 2 or 3 verses of 1 Corinthians 15. He, for 45 minutes, preached on these 6 essentials. He said, you do not have a gospel unless you have these 6 things in your preaching of the gospel. Not only did he never mention the resurrection, he never mentioned anything even close to the resurrection. And he was preaching from a chapter where Paul's main point of the entire chapter is, if the resurrection... He actually has a video on it.
I'm going to go watch it. Well, I went and spent... there was a conference I went to right after I got back, right after Christmas, and he preached several times, and we had a nice chat, actually.
I actually wanted to talk to him afterwards, but I think the fact that I was carrying an N.T. Wright book in my hand made him cut the line early and go. That and it was his birthday, so.
He's like, I'm not going there today.
Yeah. But no. My roommate Jeremy was with me. He's not Reformed, but he likes a lot of what Piper says and a lot of what Reformed people say, and 3 other friends of mine who are all Reformed, and they were actually shocked. Like, yeah, he never mentioned the resurrection. Like, that's weird. And then a lot of people got mad at me for pointing that out on Facebook, and then one guy even defriended me because I pointed out, hey, he didn't.
You have the best Facebook fights I've ever seen.
I try. But I'm unlocked now, so. Alright, sorry, go ahead. Alright, AIM, which is like basically crew.
Yes, that's actually a good comparison.
Are they charismatic?
They are very.
Okay. Charismatic. Very charismatic. Okay. Okay. So what were your thoughts on miracles and healings and all that stuff before?
I was a cessationist.
You were a cessationist.
I was a cessationist.
All right. Now, can you explain cessationism?
I believed that the gifts were no longer in active use, and I knew that, like, God can do whatever He wants, and if He wants someone to feel better, He can make them feel better. But I didn't necessarily believe in miracles and all that. I thought that was all ended after the apostles.
Okay, so miracles and healings. And can you define miracles and healings?
When someone suddenly, without reason or explanation, becomes well from whatever is ailing them.
So, so supernatural events, like just like only able to be done by the Spirit or by some supernatural force. Okay. Who taught you that? I guess.
I think it was just
a natural thing.
Yeah.
Like you've. Okay.
It's just. I don't think anyone specifically sat down and told me that.
Okay. So you went to this mission trip for what reason, then?
I always wanted to go to Africa.
Okay.
Since I was little, and this was embarrassing. This was the easiest, cheapest, longest way to get there, so I went.
Okay.
I wanted to go with one that more aligned with my theological beliefs, but timing and everything didn't work out, and this is just where it worked.
So August, September, October, November, 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. 3 months. Horrible at math. All right. So you arrive. Just tell us what it was like to arrive there, I guess.
We were staying in Mai Mahiu, which is it's coined as the Sodom and Gomorrah of Kenya. It's Sin City of Kenya.
So it's like Nevada or Las Vegas.
It's similar, yeah. It's really strange because it's out in the bush, but it also isn't. Mm-hmm. There's establishments, but they're like little tin shacks, and it's just a bunch of pubs. Really, all it is. And so we lived there, and it was very dirty and loud, and freaks you out a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much what you see on TV.
Okay. So very poor and stuff.
Yeah.
So you see this, and I mean, were there churches there, or
there are churches there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I went to church almost every Sunday. I would go to different ones and visit.
Did you get to visit any Anglican ones? Because there are Anglican churches there.
There are Anglicans there. Yeah. I think I may have, actually. I have to go back and look. I think I may have. And those who go to church are very passionate about it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so I guess you can. Do you remember the first time you saw some sort of thing that made you question your cessationism?
Yes.
Okay.
The first time that I saw a healing, that I was questioned over and over and tried to rationalize out of it, but There was a baby who was 2 years old, and she was strapped to her mom's back, and I went over and was talking to this lady. I never met her before. Her name was Jackie, and her baby was breathing really raspy, and I was not intending for any kind of healing to happen. I was just like, can I pray for your baby? And she had explained that her girl had a problem with her lungs, and she's never been able to breathe well. And so I was praying for her, and halfway through my prayer that she would get better, it totally cleared up, and she could breathe well, and her mom started crying and slammed the door in my face.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. So our leaders one of my leaders who believed in healing, I was like, I don't know what happened. I think it was maybe just a weird coincidence. She's like, well, the only way to know is to go back. So I went back about a week later, and her mom was like, like in love with me. I was like, her baby's all better, and we became really good friends.
So was that a lifelong thing for the child, the breathing?
Yeah. Since she was born, her lungs have been like that. And that was, I think, the second or third week of my trip that happened. And the rest of the 3 months I was there, I continued to visit her, and she always breathed clearly.
For 3 months straight.
Yeah. So I can't tell you what her status is now, but that was the first supernatural thing I saw, I guess.
Okay. All right. So that was the first one.
Yeah.
So tell me, I guess, some of the ones that like stand out for you.
There was a little girl at the hospital who was 12, and she had never walked, ever. She was paralyzed. She was in a wheelchair. And after...
I'm sorry, she had never walked ever in her entire life?
Ever.
Okay.
And she was in the hospital not for her legs. I think it was pneumonia she had that she was in the hospital for, but my friend or teammate Rachel and myself went and prayed for her every day for 6 days, and she walked. And walked well.
Every day for 6 days.
Yeah.
Prayed.
And this was after I was convinced of the healing thing, so that's why I kept going back.
And was she undergoing surgery at the time? For nothing for her legs? No, it was. So what was it for?
There was no surgery. I'm not sure that they have surgery that advanced surgery. I had a 3rd-degree burn from the motorcycle wreck, and they refused to do a skin graft on me because it wasn't clean enough. So that's the kind of hospital we're working with. Yeah. So she wasn't having any surgery. She was there for pneumonia. So.
There for pneumonia. All right. So. I don't know how to spell pneumonia. I'm guessing completely. All right. So, did you notice anything happening when she started walking? Like, was there a visual change in her legs, or was it just she just started walking?
Really. She just.
And
walked.
Was it like by the end of the 6th day she started walking, or was it she improved every day?
There was no improvement. She went from, like, we would pick her up, be like, do you want to try? And she'd be like, yeah. We'd pick her up, pull her out, and she would just, like,
completely fall
her
out.
legs, like, couldn't even move. We would just held her and put her back. And then one day she put her legs down and they stood. But I can't tell you about one where I did feel something move. This was the second or third. It was the second healing that I saw. We had been walking around. There's this woman. She was in her 70s. Her name was Annie. And she invited us into her house, as 99% of all Kenyans do. And we were just talking about her life and everything. And she started talking about how her right leg was messed up, and it causes her a lot of pain and makes her work really hard. And she said, actually, I have an x-ray above the mantle. Which, this is not important, but that whole morning I've been really put out because I felt very distant spiritually, and I was just like, I didn't want to be in Africa that day, and I was like walking around like that. So I go in this house, and right before she starts talking about this, I was like, okay, God, just surprise me, please, like, just surprise me. So he did. And so when she pulls on the x-ray, I was like, okay, he's surprising me, alright. And so I was like, well, can we pray for you? And she's like, okay, sure. So me and Karen, who was with me, went over, and I had my hand on her leg where it was messed up. It was, and I looked at the x-ray. It was fractured.
It was fractured, the
leg. Yeah.
Alright.
And so it was like at an angle, like the bone was. And I had my hand on it, and you could feel that bump there. And while we were praying, it moved. My hand was on it, and it moved. And I wasn't pushing it, but it moved. And I was like, oh, but. And then she got up, and she went from limping when we first saw her to, like, she could jump and run. Yeah.
So you felt it move while holding and praying.
Yeah.
Felt it move. All right. And she could go from that to jumping.
Yeah. Probably the last big healing one that stands out to me was much later in the trip. But I met a lady at the hospital. She introduced me to her husband, Stephen, who is in the HDU, which I'm technically not allowed in there, but after a lot of arguing with the doctors, they let me in.
HDU?
Yeah, the High Dependency Unit.
Okay.
He, a week before I met him, had surgery on his thyroid, I think. Maybe something irrelevant. And while he was having surgery, he slipped into a coma. He was in a coma for 7 days when I met him. And so his wife, Mercy, his name was Stephen, his wife, Mercy, brought me up to his room. She asked me to pray for him. And again, halfway through prayer, I'm not really paying attention because I knelt down next to his bed praying for him. And she screams and starts crying, and I look up and he's awake.
So was that just you praying?
Yes, I was by myself on that trip. I have a picture of him, actually.
Okay. Would I be able to get a copy of that?
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. And if you want, I'll send you links to, I have 5 maybe stories that I've written up on my blog.
Okay.
Pretty detailed, so I'll send those to you.
Okay. So you were praying, and in the middle of your prayer, he woke up.
Yeah.
Whoa.
His story is one of those that I have blogged.
All right. Now, those cover a lot of the healings.
Yeah.
Just the healings and stuff.
Yeah.
So these are going to be pretty interesting too, then. Okay. So we'll do miracles in general, and then we'll get to demon possession after that.
Okay. The other most of the miracles I saw were healing. One that I saw early in the trip, we had a lot of kids over at our house. We did not know this, but when it got to be noon, we were like, well, it's lunchtime. Well, guess we need to feed these kids. So Madison, my leader, and myself went to see what we had, and we were on we had no budget whatsoever, but we went to see what we had. We had 40 people to feed, and we had half a loaf of bread and half a thing of peanut butter. And we're like, this is not gonna work. And I was like, do you want me to run? It'll take me 2 hours to get there and back, but I will go get more food. And she's like, let's just pray over it. I was like, okay. So I'm laying hands on a loaf of bread, and it's stupid, and so we pray over it, nothing visibly changes. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to go get food. And she goes, nope, we're going to make sandwiches. And so me and her sit cross-legged on the concrete and start making sandwiches. And by the time we got to the end of the loaf, she was like, all right, let's count. And there was 40. Exactly 40. And I did not see it physically multiply with my eyes, but I know that we did not have enough of anything for 40 sandwiches. We did not have
So
it.
When you say loaf of bread, like it's basically the size that we would figure it to be.
The bread is completely different than our bread, but it's the same. It's the exact same size.
Okay.
The exact same size.
Do you happen to know how much loaf of bread is, like as far as pieces?
How much? No.
No. Okay.
I'm sure there's a standard, I'm sure, but I don't know.
It's probably about like half that, I'm saying.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to double check.
But I know that one loaf of bread could not make 50 sandwiches.
Yeah. Because you're talking about 80 slices, then. 80 slices.
I remember being like, we're still making sandwiches. We're still making sandwiches. But I never saw it expound. It just never ran out.
So what point in the ministry was this at? Like the first month? Like
this was the first month.
So had you seen a few miracles, just not a lot, or
this was actually maybe
or healings?
This miracles? Was within the same week that baby was healed. Okay. Yeah, it was the same week. It was really early.
The baby with the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing. Okay. So, could there have been another rational explanation for that one? Or are you...
That I just didn't see the bread correctly, maybe?
Was there another loaf of bread, maybe, that were they pulling your chain? No. Okay.
We didn't have cabinets or anything, so I know they couldn't be hiding anything anywhere. It was just we just had an empty room for a kitchen. So.
Counters and stuff, but nothing like...
Right, we had one counter across the wall, and that's it.
Okay. Let's see. Alright, other ones that stand out, miracles, aside from, like, demon possession?
Aside from demons, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, let's get to the good stuff then. First time.
Oh boy. Okay, first time. 1 month into the trip, we had debrief. It was supposed to be midway through the trip, but we had to do it early. It was basically like a week at a retreat to kind of relax and whatever. Debrief. And so one of the girls that I was very close with, named Rebecca, and she's given me permission to tell this story. She was my teammate. She woke up the last morning of debrief, and she had a cut on her face and a cut on her arm. And she said she had a dream about demons, and we all, of course, just were like, well, she must have gotten scared and, like, scratched herself in her sleep without knowing it. We went back to our house in Waimahi that day, and that night she said she was too scared to fall asleep, and so I ended up kneeling, like sitting next to her bed all night and praying for her all night. I was like, will that help you sleep if I just pray over you all night? And she said yes. So she fell asleep pretty quickly. And around 3 a.m. she started getting really restless. And I tried to wake her up, and she would not at all. So I was like, well, there's nothing I can do about this except for hold her hand and pray for her and wait for it to stop. And probably 15 minutes later, she woke up on her own, and she raised up, and I was like, are you okay? And she was like, I think my neck's bleeding. I said, no, it's not. I've been sitting here all night. I'm watching you. You didn't cut yourself. You're not bleeding. You're okay. And she goes, no, I think I am. And she reached up and felt it, and she pulled her hand down. There's blood all on her hand. And I was like, oh, no. So I got my headlamp. We didn't have electricity. So I got my headlamp and looked. There's this huge gash on her neck.
Like a cut? Like a horizontal cut?
Yes.
About how wide?
It's very thin, very straight.
So 4 inches.
Yeah. Cut. And they bled quite a bit.
A lot of.
Yeah.
All right.
And at that point, I was like, well, I know she didn't do this to herself, so something invisible that I cannot see just cut her.
Uh-huh.
And so I reached out and I woke up. All of the girls slept in one room, except for our leaders who were downstairs in a different room. And this was an abandoned concrete building with members. So I woke up the girls and I'm like, we need to pray for Rebecca right now. I don't know what is going on. Most of the girls on my trip, not to be rude, they weren't spiritually mature in my opinion, so I didn't want to tell them what I thought of it. But Rachel, I whispered and I was like, I think she has a demon. And like her, yeah. So I was like, I'm going to go downstairs and get Shannon and Madison, our leaders, and I brought them back up and I told them what's going on. And it pretty much just naturally slid into, we don't know what's going on, but she's bleeding. And so we just kind of, on a whim, did like an exorcism. Very stupid, because we didn't know what we were doing. But we didn't know what else to do. So, we were basically just praying for her and praying for whatever evil that we didn't understand about her would go away. And we kept encouraging her to say it. And her jaw was just like locked. She wouldn't do it. And it probably took a good 30 minutes. And she finally said, in the name of Jesus, get out. And like her whole demeanor changed.
You said that or she said that?
She said that.
What's her name again? Rebecca.
Rebecca. Her whole demeanor changed and everything was good. I don't want to say that was demonic. Immediately after, another teammate who ironically is also named Rebecca, had a seizure. She started seizing, and that was just a whole other story. But I don't know that they're connected. I don't think they are.
Okay.
But it's
probably because of her reaction, you'd say. Like her seeing that, you know.
She ended up having a seizure every night for a month, and then she got sent home. Because medically that's dangerous.
Yeah.
And the hospital there was like, we don't know what to do about this. So we had to send her home.
So that's the first one.
Yeah. And with her, I could spend hours telling more stories very similar to that one. Basically, I was up. She would wake me up in the middle of the night every single night for the rest of the 2 months. Saying that whatever it was back and hurting her, and by it, she would continue getting cut on her arms, chest, back, stomach, upper thighs, and she was very OCD about not OCD, but she was really whatever about wanting them to be cleaned, but she couldn't clean them herself. It freaked her out. So every night I'd be up with her, we'd tell stuff to go away, and then the next morning I would clean all of her cuts. And by the end of the 2 months, she had over 400 on her body.
400.
Yeah. And there were a lot of times that I tried to be like, surely she's cutting herself and I'm just missing it. Surely I'm just not seeing it, and I don't know how she's doing it, but she's got to be very manipulative, and she's doing this. But
so all of the cuts, were they more or less the same size?
No, they varied. They were always very straight, always very thin. But some were short, some were really, really long. There's some on her back that just reached the entirety of her back.
Oh, wow.
All the way across.
So from an inch or two or so. Ranging from 1-2 inches to about a foot, or About a foot.
I guess
how big?
I guess that's a foot.
Let's say 8 inches or something.
Yeah.
Inches. Across there. All the way straight. Okay.
So
how deep were they? I guess maybe.
Varied. Yeah, they were varied. Some were like barely just a scratch, and then some were really, really deep and bled quite a lot.
And so you would see, there are various times you would see, watch her and stuff while she was sleeping, and you, did you ever notice a cut forming or something like that?
Well, there was one time that I saw it show up because I tried to make it make sense and say that she was doing it and I was missing it. It got to where it would happen in the daytime too, as well, not just at night. And there was one day that she and I were going to visit a woman, and we were walking, and she starts getting that glazed over look again, where you're about to lose her, you're not talking to her anymore. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, nothing. And I was like, we've been doing this for 2 months. I know something's going on. And she's like, I'm fine. And I looked into just there on her neck, and I was like, well, your neck is being cut, so I know something's going on. And she's like, okay, fine. But I can't rationalize that because, and I know I'm not a crazy person. I questioned it a couple times. But yeah, I saw them 2 cuts show up on her neck, which they don't scratch downwards. They appeared they rose. It's like the scratches rose up from the bottom, like from internally, which was very strange. And they just bleed more than they look like they should.
So was she the only person you saw with demonic possession?
No, there was a witch that I became friends with named Margaret. And she was actually converted by the time I left. But
alright.
And then there was a friend of hers. I never knew her name. She never spoke a word to me. But whatever was in her did speak words to me, and I had a nice little conversation with whatever was in her. As far as I know, nothing of that was ever resolved. But
can you explain some of that one?
Margaret's friend. Margaret, the way we met her was really strange, but it's a long story. So basically, we met her, and we wanted to go inside and talk with her and just have chai. And she would not allow it, which was very, very uncommon for Kenyan. They always invite you inside, and she was like, no. And she was getting really angry, and it was 3 girls and 1 guy. And she's like, no. And she was like fighting us and like getting very upset. And we're like, we just want to talk. She's like angry. And maybe 5-10 minutes into this, her being angry, she goes, I'm sorry, please come in. And she let us inside, and we're like, why did you let us inside? And she goes, well, I saw you had the power of God with you, and I had to let you in. And we're like, oh, okay. Sure, of course. What else?
And this is the friend?
This is Margaret. This
is Margaret. Okay.
The witch. After talking with her over a few occasions, she ended up saying she was a witch. I asked her what that meant. I was like, what do you mean by you're a witch? Like, what do you do? And she goes, well, I curse people. And I was like, do you have the power to curse people? And she pointed at the lamp and knocked it over. Which lamp? It's not like a workable lamp, but it's like
basically a vase that's supposed to hold light.
Exactly. Exactly.
Theoretically.
And she just pointed and knocked it over, and I said, oh, that's what you mean, okay. And I was like, do you like, just curse anyone that you want. And she was, only if I don't like them. I was like, cool. Cool. And she ended up, she said that she wanted whatever power me and my teammates had.
Simon Magus.
She's like, I want whatever power you have. And I was like, we don't have any powers exactly. And she was like, well, what is it that you have? And I said, well, I guess you mean Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And so over our meetings, we talked a lot about the gospel and what it meant. And she one day she invited me over. I went there and we sat down, and she goes, I'm ready. I said, okay, what are you ready for? And she goes, I'm ready for the Holy Spirit to come. Please pray for it to come. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. But yeah. So that was her. Her friend, the day that she was arguing with us about coming in, my friends were the ones who were asking to go inside. Meanwhile, I'm kind of standing off to the side with her friend. Her friend is staring, like, I've never understood the term, like, stare into your soul until I met this woman, and she was just staring at me. She never vocally said anything. No one on my team caught this. But she said, I'm going to kill you. And I replied silently. I didn't say anything. And I was like, you're going to kill me. And, like, we had this whole conversation about how she was going to kill us. And I said, you don't know where we live. And this basically just makes me sound like a schizophrenic. But when I said to her silently, you don't know where we live, she reached over and pointed at our building. And I was like, okay, you do know where we live. And this is actually a conversation that's happening. I have no idea what happened to her. I'm sorry. Thankfully.
Hopefully she didn't kill you. So, you just knew... Did you hear a voice in your head? Okay.
Like, I heard it. It was a man's voice. Yeah. And I've seen the demons as well.
Okay.
I don't know how much time you have.
Oh, I have all the time. Don't worry about that. I mean, I'm supposed to see a movie at 7, but, like, I cannot text her. Like, this is pretty important to me, so. 37. Okay. Tell me about that one.
The second night with Rebecca. It was her birthday. Oh. It was her 22nd birthday. And we were having a party for her, and we were just dancing and being silly, stupid girls. And we had our little nightly worship. And I looked over, and she was visibly, like, just off. And so I went over to her and was like, are you okay? And she didn't respond. And so I kind of motioned for Madison to come over, and pretty soon everyone saw what was going on. Everyone went over to her. I'm standing in front of her, and she was holding my hands. And she... I don't even know. Like, she just was not there. Her eyes changed. Everything about her changed. She's not a strong girl at all. And she was, like, clenching me and trying to get away from me. I had scratches all over my arms where she was trying to get away from me. And I was like, no. And so we did another exorcism on her, I guess. And at one point she fell. And so we were both, like, sitting facing each other on our knees, and she would stare at me much like that other woman did, and I figured out I wasn't looking at Rebecca anymore, and so I stopped talking to Rebecca and stopped telling her, like, tell it to leave, which is basically what we were doing the whole time. It was like, just tell it to leave, it has to obey you. Mm-hmm. So I quit talking to her, and I was like, I'm not afraid of you. I have authority over you. You can't do anything to me. And whenever I said, and I want you to leave in Jesus' name, when I said Jesus, she would shut her eyes and hold them shut. And a few seconds later, she'd open them again and start staring, and I would do the same thing. And every time I said Jesus, she'd shut her eyes. This was a really long one, and it took... We were there probably an hour. And she went outside after everything was over, which when it leaves, you can feel it. Like, you can, like, she dropped, and like the whole weight of everything in the atmosphere just changes. Mm-hmm. So she went outside to sit on the porch. It was nighttime. And she went out to sit, and all the team went out with her, and they were kind of like celebrating and saying like she was free and whatever. Yeah. And Gracie and I went up to our room, and we didn't have our headlamps with us. All we had there, we had a big window, and the moon was shining in, and so like you could. It was like, when there's a full moon, you can kind of see, but not really. Mm-hmm. And we walked into our room, and every single bed had a little guy about this tall sitting on our bed, laughing. And there was 13 of us, so there's 13 beds that all had a demon on them, and kind of scared us at first. And Gracie's like, what do we do? And I was like, I don't know, I guess we'll just pray until they leave. And so that took a while too. Probably 20 minutes of praying and being like, telling them to get out in Jesus' name and all that stuff. And they would laugh at us, and then if you get really bold with them, like, get out in Jesus' name. Then they get scared. They shrink back, and at one point, Gracie and I both said together, in Jesus' name, get out, and they all got up and ran out the window. This is the second story. I don't know where they went. I did not see them. They just ran out the window. And then we prayed over each individual bed and whatever, and they never got back in the house. They came to our property, but they never got back in.
So what did they look like?
Just tall.
Okay.
They were very dark gray. They had pointy ears. Really long, nails. Their feet had really long nails. They were Gollum-ish, honestly.
Did you two talk about what they look like to each other?
Yes.
And you both saw the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And you distinctly remember what they looked like before you talked to them? Her? Okay.
Because, we went outside and we're like, what just happened? After everything was over, and yeah.
And were they physical, as in they looked like flesh and blood? Okay.
I'm 90% sure if I had reached out, I could have touched them. I didn't try.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I could have.
Alright, and that's the first time you saw them?
Yeah.
So what other times?
That was the only time I saw them. I woke up one night. This was somewhere 2 months into the trip. At this point, all of it was kind of normal, which is sad to say, but it was normal. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I got up and went over to Rachel's bed and woke her up, and I was like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, why? And I was like, I woke up and I needed to check on you. And she was like, yeah, I'm fine. She goes...
And this is the Rebecca that we've been talking about.
This is Rachel.
Rachel, I'm sorry.
Rachel is totally, she is incredible, super godly girl. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why I felt inclined to check on her, because I had no reason to believe she wasn't okay. But I had woken up and I went to check on her, and she goes, do you feel like something's circling the house? I was like, I don't know. And she's like, I need to go check. And the night before, she did not know, no one on my team knew this. The night before, I went around the perimeter of our property. We had a little fence, but it was pretty worthless. But I went around the perimeter and prayed for angels to be around the property, keeping the evil, demonic stuff out.
That was the day before?
This was the day before. Okay. She went out there and she said there were hundreds of them running around our house and running into some kind of invisible barrier trying to get in.
And you did not want to look out?
No, not really. Not that I was scared exactly, but at that point, me waking Rachel up woke McCavery up, and McCavery was upset, and she went. So I ended up praying over McCavery and then with Rebecca, and I mean it was an hour later that Rebecca woke me up to do her thing again. Oh my gosh, there's so much, but Rebecca tried to kill me at one point.
One second, let me just finish this and I'll get to that. Okay. This might be my friend.
Yeah. So you really can go. I can come back.
Let me see. Your case 9. Do you want to go with us to see the movie?
Who is this?
My friend Mimi. She's a Roman Catholic. Really great girl. I think you'll like her. You two get along really well.
Really?
Yeah. I'd love for you to come.
I don't really want to like...
No, it's not like that. We've been good friends for like 2 years, and we're best friends, and we're like, I love having more people to come to hang out. I seriously would love for you to come. Don't feel pressured though.
I'm thinking what time I would get home, and then because I have to get up and go to work in the morning. I'll get back. Okay. Unless you want to give her an answer.
It's just gonna change depending on your answer. It's gonna change like what we're gonna do in the next.
Oh, gotcha.
But it's fine, like Okay.
I probably should.
So, if we don't get to finish up here, would you mind coming back later for another session?
No, that'd be fine.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's 3 months of crap. There's tentatively no end to it.
Yeah, I hear you. So what was the next one you had?
I can make this quick. This is the last big thing.
Okay.
When she tried to kill me, she was towards the end of the trip. We had 2 weeks.
This is
left.
Rebecca.
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
We had 2 weeks left of the trip, and she woke me up. It was probably 11 o'clock. She called me, and I was like, thank goodness.
Called your name, yeah.
Yes. I was like, thank goodness we're going to get this over with now, and she won't wake me up in the middle of the night. She was in the closet. All the other girls were asleep. She was in the closet, and she was like on her hands and knees, and her chest was bleeding. And I was like, it was so normal by that time, and I was just like, okay, well, what's going on? And she goes, I want to go outside. And my Mahou at night is not a place to be outside. I was like, okay, you don't need to go outside. And she pushed me over and like started going. I was like, well, if you're gonna go out there, I'm going with you. So I followed her. We got to the top of the staircase, and she like wheeled around, and she had that look again where it's like, I'm not looking at Rebecca anymore. And it's like, what are they saying to you? And she goes, it says die. She had tried to kill herself when she was 18, so I assumed she meant herself. And I said, they told you to die? And she said, no, you. I was like, oh, good. I was like, okay, what else did they say? And she goes, I have to hurt you. And so she, like, reaches forward and grabs my neck and starts trying to choke me. And it was not her strength at all, because she's bigger than me, but she's not stronger than me, but she was strong. And I, like, took her wrist and was like, demanded that. I was like, whoever you are, let go of me. You are not allowed to do this. And I took her wrist and jerked her off. And then she just snapped out of it, and it was back to Rebecca. And I was like, we need to go to Madison's room. Madison was the only other. She was our leader. She was the only other one who knew what was going on to its full extent. The other girls were never involved with this except the first 2 times, and then they pretty much thought it was over. So we went down to Madison's room. I basically was like, deal with this. I'm just gonna sit. I can't deal with this right now. Rebecca has no recollection of doing that. I've talked to her about it a little bit. She has no memory of that whatsoever.
So, how long was she choking you for?
Just a few seconds.
Okay. Okay, we got 3 pages in.
Cool.
Alright, thank you very much. If you want to say bye-bye to the camera or whatever.
Bye.